Okay, we're continuing with quotes. This is part 2 of Carl Rogers. He says that what is most personal and unique in each one of us is probably the very element which would, if it were shared or expressed, speak most deeply to others. Yeah, so that thing that's gnawing at our gut, should I say it even though I really feel it but I'm afraid to say it? That's what's interesting. Okay, this has helped me to understand artists and poets as people who have dared to express the unique in themselves. Yeah, that's kind of well known amongst people who've studied the subject, is that the thing that you're hesitant to say, that's putting you right on the edge between what's allowed to be said or not allowed to be said. That's what's most interesting. So if you're going to try to be useful and interesting, you're going to have to say stuff that makes you a little bit uncomfortable. It's like a good doctor lecturing about a procedure. If you want your procedure lecture to be good, you have to talk about times where you had complications. You have to talk about times where you screwed up, because that alerts the other person to stuff to watch out for. Okay, so you got to say stuff like, yeah, I used, an 18 gauge needle. I should have used, a different size needle, and, and I got stuck. I couldn't get around this spot, so I had to use it. You have to say the stuff that you're a little embarrassed to say, but that's what everybody learns from. Anyways, he says a congruent person is genuine, real, integrated, whole, and transparent. The non-congruent person tries to impress, plays a role, puts up a front, and hides behind a facade. Congruence between feelings and actions can never be total, but choosing to be real with others is the single most important decision a person can make. It's a sign of respect. When you can just be yourself, it's a sign you like the other person, you're comfortable with them, that you trust them, that you can kind of just be open, go with the flow, and say what just comes into your mind. Versus when you're around people you don't trust or you don't know, you're kind of guarded. You keep things transactional. There's only one solitary thread of conversation to make yourself predictable. Versus when you're with a friend, you can throw out jokes from any direction. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's part of being a friend to somebody, giving them the benefit of the doubt when they talk in a couple different tangents. Okay, Carl Rogers. When we put together a prescribed curriculum in a school with similar assignments for all students, lecturing as the only mode of instruction, standard texts by which all students are graded, then we can guarantee that meaningful learning will be at an absolute minimum. Yeah, the way public schools, grade school, high school, and college are designed, they're designed to make sure the person learns as little as possible. And that's one of the things I've noticed, is that in the modern world, to be intelligent, you have to recognize that many things, and it's not just a few, many things are the opposite of what they say they are. The public school is not there to educate you. It's there to prevent you from being educated, okay? Carl Rogers. Testing of the student in order to see if he meets some criterion held by the teacher is directly contrary to significant learning. Yeah, just imagine as an adult, if you were forced to sit in a room for 8 hours a day, somebody you don't know, somebody you don't particularly like is just talking to you, like some stranger lady. It's normal that a boy doesn't want to listen to that. That's not a normal thing to do. And the subjects they pick are designed to be worthless. Teaching history based on dates rather than personality. Okay. Teaching a second language like Spanish based on grammar questions rather than communication. These are all unnatural things that make the person forget everything. Okay, Carl Rogers. I deeply believe that traditional teaching is an almost completely futile, wasteful, overrated function in today's changing world. It is successful mostly in giving children who can't grasp the material a sense of failure. I actually think that's a big part of what public schools, grade schools, high schools are designed to do. They're designed to teach people, look, you're not in the top 20% academically, therefore you deserve to be poor. And it's a way, there's not that many high-paying jobs, so by making all these students, be disappointed in their academic performance, you help them to accept that it's their own fault that they're poor. Even though what is taught in the schools is most of the time, in the vast majority of cases, irrelevant to the real world. Like I said, look at pre-med education. Calculus is 100% irrelevant. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in calculus that I ever used in my clinical career as a high-tech doctor, okay? And why make people take Texas? Take calculus? Because it's a way to have most of them flunk out of it and then say, look, you're just not smart enough, okay? But, medicine does not select for the cleverest minds. It selects for people who have the personality of like an accountant, They're highly responsible. They do what they're told. They get their work done on time. That's a doctor, okay? But, real smart doctors, they're rare. There's not that many of them, okay? There's lots of hardworking conformist doctors, tons of those. That's a dime a dozen. Okay, next quote of Carl Rogers. Every individual exists in a continually changing world of which he is the center. The person reacts to the field as it is experienced and perceived. The perceptual field is, for them, the individual reality. The best vantage point for understanding behavior is from the internal frame of reference of the individual themselves. Yeah, that's like somebody else that said that. You can't understand a person until you understand how they see themselves. Okay, Carl Rogers. Significant learning changes the way a person thinks, acts, or perceives. Yeah, memorizing a whole bunch of stuff, that doesn't change you or change anything you do. But something that makes you change your behavior, that's actually a big deal. If it makes you change your diet, that's a big deal. If it makes you change how you exercise, that's a big deal. Okay, Carl Rogers. The only kind of learning which significantly influences behavior is self-discovered or self-appropriated learning. Truth that has been assimilated in experience. Okay. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. I have learned that my whole orgasmic sensing of a situation is more trustworthy than my intellect. And what I'd say from that is, you know how you're talking to like your friends and family and they say something or do something and you just have a gut feeling that this would be funny. You just say it because you can say whatever you want in front of your friends and family. So you just say it and it's funny. And being more like that with your other friends, that makes you more fun to talk to more funny because this gut feeling that comes out of your subconscious of what would be funny at the moment, that's usually the most accurate thing. That's what he's basically saying. I have learned that my whole organismic sensing of a situation is more trustworthy than my intellect. When I can relax and be close to the transcendental core of me, then I may behave in strange and impulsive ways in the relationship, ways that I cannot justify rationally, which have nothing to do with my thought processes. But these strange behaviors turn out to be right in some odd way. At these moments, it seems that my inner spirit has reached out and touched the other spirit, the inner spirit of the other. Our relationship transcends itself and has become something larger. And I think it's learning to trust your subconscious, because your subconscious mind is way smarter than your conscious mind. Your conscious mind can only keep in focus one thing at a time, essentially. Versus your subconscious mind, think about it, it keeps track of a bazillion things. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, your gut absorption of all these different things. There's a lot of stuff going on that it keeps track of. It's capable of a lot. It's a typical thing like you sleep on an idea and you wake up in the morning and the idea comes to you. It's because your brain's been working on it all night, your subconscious mind. Carl Rogers, the optimal therapeutic conversation is the ultimate of subjectivity, individualization. And the reason why that's a good quote, if you listen to most academics, they're going to tell you, do not listen to anecdotal information. Do not listen to subjective information. What matters is the published research studies. But in reality, the published research studies are usually fake nowadays, paid for by a corporation. And what some friend of yours tells you, yeah, I tried using that device and the guide wire kinked on me. It's no good. Use this other guide wire. That's good advice. He's telling you the truth. Okay, but the research study saying these are the best guide wires. The corporation paid for that to get you to use their guide wire when you're doing, Seldinger technique procedures. Okay, we're going to continue with Carl Rogers. In the minds of most behavioral scientists, man is not free, nor can he, as a free man, commit himself to some purpose, since he is controlled by factors outside of himself. Therefore, neither freedom nor commitment is even a possible concept to modern behavioral science as it is usually understood. So what he's basically speaking there is about, B.F. Skinner, behaviorism, saying that humans are simply animals that respond to punishments and rewards. And if you reward something, they'll do more of it. If you punish something, they'll do less of it. And that's all there is to it. They have no intrinsic mind or purpose or will. And I think that's all BS. That's a dehumanization of individuals. But that's a commonly held position of a lot of higher up people in corporations. Okay, Carl Rogers continues. The major barrier to mutual interpersonal communication is our very natural tendency to judge, to evaluate, to approve or disapprove the statement of the other person or group. You have to be orientated properly to have a useful conversation. The goal is to help each other, to listen carefully, to tell the truth, to cheer each other. Empathic, attentive listening with the goal of making things better. Yeah, like a friend. You give them the benefit of the doubt, you let them talk. You trust that what they're saying, even though it seems tangential at first, it's going to come to something reasonable, some reasonable point. So you let them go on for a while. Experience for me is the highest authority. The touchstone of validity is my own experience. Okay, here's a Jordan Peterson quote. I just threw this in because it kind of goes with this. People need to talk to clarify their thoughts. It helps them just to have you listen. If you provide yourself as a listener, they might be able to help themselves, to solve the problem on their own, just by having this opportunity to talk out loud. Okay, Carl Rogers. People learn better when they feel free to be themselves. Okay, the last quote of Carl Rogers. It is impossible to start a therapeutic relationship if the person seeking help does not want to improve. Yeah, you can't push a person up a ladder. It is impossible to convince someone to change for the better. The desire to improve is a precondition for improvement. Yeah, the person has to say they want to get better. They want to give it a try. And they're going to make the effort. Anyways, that's it for part 2 of Carl Rogers' quotes. Hope you found it helpful.